Coming up on this week's Pembroke Dock Towncast, we have got a load of stuff to catch up on. There's a load of stuff in the news. There's stuff to do with the school. There's Sea Empress stuff. There's horses. And I want to know who remembers the BMX track. Let's get on with the show.
Be strong.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Pembroke Dock Towncast with me, Lee G. This is your place for all good things from Pembroke Dock, all the gossip, all the news, all the events, all of the usual stuff on this week's thing. So before we start, and I'll come to this a bit later. So I've put a little video out today on the Pembroke Towncast. So as many of you know, I live in Pembroke. I'm from the dock. I live in Pembroke. And when I'm walking the dogs and the horses were loose, so I recorded a video of the horses being loose. And it sounds like I'm massively, massively out of breath. And I don't remember being out of breath. So am I imagining that? So can somebody check my video? And I just sound out of breath. Do I sound out of breath now? Because I shouldn't be, because I'm just sat in what used to be my son's room, is now my office. My son doesn't know that it's now my office. He's living in Manchester, so he's not going to need it for a while. So yeah, so really weird sometimes to hear yourself back on that. So anyway, we've got a load of stuff going on this week. So I am going to start with events. So as I get this ready, obviously next week is kind of the week before St. David's Day. So I'm going to try a bit like I did at Christmas. I'll do a little bit extra on any St. David's Day events. I think there are a couple of in here as well. But if you've got any St. David's Day events, now I am a massive fan of St. David's Day. I think it's an opportunity for us as a community to remember our roots, remember where we're from, remember who we are, to connect to connect to our history and all of this stuff. I just think it's a massive opportunity for us to do stuff. So I would love to know what you're doing for St. David's. I always used to remember St. David's Day back in the day, back in the day when it'd be the Telegraph. And the Telegraph used to be the be all and end all. And everyone would send in their school photos from nursery right up, and you'd all go in, like all the girls would go in their Welsh ladies outfit. Boys would go in either as a rugby. I was always a rugby player because my dad was a rugby player and I was a rugby player, so I was always a rugby player, or a king, or a dragon. I remember one of the boys went dressed as a dragon one year. Now, I was just the best thing ever. Miners, farmers, all of those kind of things. But it was always a big thing. And then it would be in the Telegraph, and then Telegraph would come out the week after, and it'd be a bumper edition, and everyone, like your whole family, like if it was your nan or whatever, and she'd have like 10 grandchildren in different schools, and she'd have all of them pinned up around the kitchen and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you're doing anything for St. David's Day next week, do let me know, because I'd love to promote it. I'd love to have more of a St. David's Day thing, and I have a feeling the council would too on that. So a couple of things coming up in February. So I just wanted to highlight warm rooms still going on. So I know this one is the Heritage Centre, but I know we've also got the Pater Hall, and I know we've also got Penna Hall. Another coal blast coming, apparently, allegedly. They do kind of blend. This is the problem with having a warning system, is you just constant, particularly this time of year, it's just a constant warning after warning after warning. But yeah, well worth doing it. So every Tuesday, warm rooms over in the Heritage Centre. But like I say, have a look on Pater Hall, if I remember correctly, Pater Hall is a Friday, and I think Penner Hall is a Thursday, but you'll need to go onto their Facebook page. All of this is taken off people's Facebook page, by the way, so it's all on there. But just go and have a look, because if you need it, it's there. And I would say to anybody, if you're struggling with getting somewhere, if you need to get to a warm room, put a message out, and it's up to us then as people with cars, transport, to be aware of our neighbours and say, hey, I'll take you to that and I'll pick you up on that. Okay. Moving on to that. So this is a little bit more interesting, different. This is based in Milford, but it's very much a part of us. So 1st of March, St. David's Day, over in Sybil House. It says Sybil House, but I think there's a couple of different locations. Basically, it's a festival of the sea. Lots of workshops, lots of talks, lots of stuff going on about the sea. And if a lot of our heritage is the reason Pembroke Dock exists is because of its location with the sea. You know, Pater Church was a fishing village. It used to have, five or six little boats that would all go in and out, and then someone went, "Hey, let's go build some massive ships," and everything to do with Pembroke Dock is based around the sea. So we should probably be taking more of an interest in it, even if it's, I'm not a sailor, I'm barely a swimmer, Christ. But it's something that shaped our town and something that shaped our environment. So yeah, we should be aware of it. And what I will absolutely tell you now, and I'm going to do this in a future podcast. It won't be next week because of St. David's Day, but it'll be after that. Our future in Pembroke Dock is absolutely based around Freeport and the energy and going out to sea and things like that. So the sea is really, really important to us. It is our lifeblood. So please do, if you have a chance to go to Festival of the Sea, please do let me know. I have a suspicion that I will be occupied on that day, but if you do go, please do send me a video or whatever. So some good news for the town. So something I missed last week, I think I missed, was the shipwright transfer and ownership and being reopened. So that wasn't closed too long. So Cozy Diner as well. That's now reopening as Law Street Diner. So that's next week, 24th. So this is being run by some people from Tembe that run the street. I'm wanting to say the street food company. I think that's right. But yeah, it'd be great to see that up and running again. And the more of those we get, the better, as far as I'm concerned on this. This is looking a little bit further ahead. This is March 14th. This is Easter, so we'll go, St. David's Day, and then we'll go into Easter, and then I'll find something else to do as well. But Three Amigos are doing a takeover of St. Govan's shopping centre, so that'll be nice to see. I'm assuming this is fundraising for Three Amigos and the Easter egg run and things like that. But keep your eyes on the St. Govan's shopping centre page, because there'll be lots more to come on that, I'm sure. So again, this is a bit closer. This is on the 18th, so hopefully I'll get this out on the evening of the 17th. So you'll probably be listening to this on the 18th or around about there. So you may be aware this is in Milford Haven again, but this is in the Phoenix Bowl. Ironically, Phoenix Bowl was on its way out. Toby Ellis has now taken it over and given it a bit of an injection of life, but it's our closest bowling alley, it's our closest entertainment place. So there's a couple of bits and bobs that are going on over there. Well, with having a look at the page, I think, I'm not 100% certain, but I think you have to book, because there's like a couple of different sessions. But it's not just bowling, it's a bit more around it. It's a bit like when you take crazy golf and then you do it crazy golf inside, and then you have the lights going and people jumping out of cupboards and all of that kind of stuff. That kind of vibe going on there. So well done, Toby, for reinvigorating the Phoenix Bull. Um, and while we're talking about things a little bit further down the line, I saw this on the town council Facebook page. So, Memorial Park, end of May, looking for local bands. Now, I remember when I was, this isn't my I remember section, but when I was young, we had quite a few local bands, quite a few talented musicians. Um, and there's always been a tradition in Pembroke and Pembroke Dock of having young, um, edgy bands. So if you are one of those, or maybe you're an old fogey like me, maybe you're an old fogey sitting there with your accordion and your mouth organ, and you go, "Hey, I quite fancy a go with this." Town Council are looking for entertainment on 24th. Ideal opportunity to show what you can do and to, yeah, pick up a few more followers. So that's what it's about nowadays. So saw this launched as well. Well, not launched, but seen this being promoted this week. So this is the Penna Chair Space. So I think it's being run by a group based in the Penna Hall, but I don't think it's in the Penna Hall on that. Okay. So go onto their page, have a look. Go to the Penna Hall Facebook page because there's a ton of stuff on there anyway, and I can guarantee that I missed about half of the stuff that's on there because I've been busy over the last couple of weeks. But a share space is basically it's a clothes and a food bank. Yeah. I used to see there was one that was like a toy library as well and something like that, and they all work really really well as long as you're not taking the mick. Yeah, there's a balancing line between, you know, not being embarrassed to go and ask for help, and I would have that feeling. 'Cause I'm not part of it, but that people would rather that somebody came and asked for help that didn't need it than somebody who needed help who felt embarrassed to come forward. You know, but it's there, and I think so you don't need a referral. Some of the other food banks you need a referral, which is where you tend to get that bit where you don't get the people who are you only get people who are at the far end of that. So this is for anyone. You don't need a referral. You can make contact and you can say, "Hey, can you help?" Um, See, that says it is based at the Penna Hall. Down the bottom there it says based at the Penna Hall. So yeah, and this is the bit that I like as well here. Okay, collection and delivery service available. You don't need to go in and say, "Hey, I'm struggling to eat today." Hey, I can't turn on the heating. Can I have a blanket? You can phone them up and say, "Hey, I'm struggling and I'm embarrassed. I don't want to come and walk through that door because it's a struggle for me." And you know, I've I've not been at that bit, but I've been at that bit where you're embarrassed to say, "Look, I'm struggling." Okay. And fingers crossed, touch wood, you get out the other side of it, and you're like, "Okay, I'm going to help other people now." If you are in that situation, give them a ring, see what they can do. Um, you know, there's nothing to be embarrassed about with that at all. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the news. Like I say, if you've got any events for next week, um, I haven't got many things for pubs and restaurants and cafes and all of that. Please do tag me in it. Okay, so let's have a look at the news. So you will have seen this, heard of it, and this is the bit. It kind of, I don't know whether it winds me up or frustrates me or whatever. And it's not just Pembroke Dock; it's everywhere. That the first thing that happens when you see something like this, and you get the whole stuff on social media. Then social media's just made it so much worse. But it was always that way where it would just be, "Oh, so and so's been down the pub and met a bloke that said he's seen this and she's seen that and what have you." So we've had two big news stories in Pembroke Dock over the last couple of weeks. Okay, so we've had the death of an 85-year-old man, Hawkston Road, um, and somebody is being arrested for it. Um, I'm not gonna go into the details of that because it just takes one wrong word in the wrong place and all hell breaks loose for that. So I'm not gonna go into the details of names and dates and what have you. But I wanted to just that is out there. Um, Pembroke and Pembroke Dock Police are always a good source of information for those kind of things. But then we also had this, this is on Friday the 13th. Um, and some of you have probably been caught up with this in the town because it wasn't just one location. There was a couple of locations on Bush Street, I believe, Gordon Street as well. I think four people have been arrested um, to do with. I think I'm safe on saying it was to do with drugs and um, having things that you shouldn't have in terms of weapons and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, those two both in close proximity to each other. So I'm just going to stop sharing there. And there's a danger that that becomes the narrative that we live by in Pembroke Dock. Yeah, so it's kind of my rolling it into my chatty bit as well, but it's very easy to allow that to drag us down, to go, oh yeah, Pembroke Dock, that's a dodgy place. There's a guy been murdered. There's all the drugs raids and blah 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 blah. That only happens if we allow it to. That can only take a foothold if enough people let it. And now more than ever, we need to be screaming that Pembroke Dock is a nice place. We need to be applauding the police and saying thank you for getting these people out of our society. We need to be saying, you know, these people are not welcome in our town and we need to get them out because they won't be the only ones. They won't be the only ones. There will be other people that are sitting there rubbing their hands and going, great little bit of an opportunity for me. And we need to get them out as well. Whoever they are, whatever they do, we need to get them out. And then the real way to do it, okay, the real way to do it, there are two ways to do this. One is to use the police and go, right, okay, let's stop the dealers in the town. Let's make sure that there's no dealers in the town. Here's the problem with that: that these kind of things are supply, they demand dependent. So you wherever you get people, you will get a drug dealer that goes, "Hey, do you want some drugs?" And if enough people turn around and say, "No, I don't," they'll go somewhere else because it's not worth their while staying there trying to sell drugs to people that don't want the drugs. You then take that step back and you go, right, okay, why are there drug dealers in Pembroke Dock? And I talk to people quite a bit, and it's rife. It's everywhere. It's on every corner, and all of that kind of stuff. And like I say, that can become the narrative if we let it. And I'm absolutely going, well, okay, if you know that so and so's a drug dealer, go and report them. If you know that if you suspect that there's some activity there, go and report them. But what are you doing to help the people who are taking the drugs, that are buying the drugs? What kind of society are we creating that says the best way to enjoy it is to get off your face? Yeah. What can we do as a community to say, hey, okay, you don't need to take drugs because there's all this other stuff going on. There's the stuff in the park. There's a stuff in St Govans. There's a band playing in this pub. There's activities going on here. There's the dairy project where you bring your kids and you can learn how to do gardening. You can learn how to do forest skills. You can there's a load of stuff you can be involved in. There's a load of stuff you can occupy your time with if you want it. And sometimes we need to tell people that. Sometimes we need to go, do you know what? Yeah, I disapprove of the life choices that you're making. There are better choices that you can be making. Let me show you some. If we don't, then you end up in that situation where people go, here you go, mate, have a little bit of this. Have a little bit of this on me. Have a little bit of this for free. This will make all that other stuff a little bit easier to cope with. And then they're in and they got a hook and it goes on and on and on. So, yeah, as you know, I don't want to be going out there and saying, hey, look, we got a problem and all this, but I think we got to admit it. I think we got to own up to it and say, there's a problem. Has there always been a problem? I think it's been a problem for a long time. I think there was a problem when I was growing up. Certainly, when I was growing up, I knew certain people that I would avoid because they were dodgy. There were certain people I would avoid because back in my day, it was sniffing glue. And if somebody was sniffing glue, they'd be off their head. You wouldn't have a clue what they were doing, you know. So it's not a new problem for Pembroke Dock, but it's a problem with Pembroke Dock. But it's one that we can talk about and have an honest conversation with and find a solution. And let's say for me, it comes if we just rely on the police, we'll be sitting there going, "Oh, police do this, police do that, police do this," and they'll find a way around it because there'll always be a demand. If we tackle it from both ends, if we go, right, okay, police, can you help with this? And by the way, if you are taking drugs, here's a here's a better solution. Here's something you can do. Here's some help. Here's the refer, depending on what part of that scale they're at. Here's some people that can help with some serious stuff. Here's some people that can help before you get into that serious stuff. That's up to us as a society to help with. And that's my kind of thing this week is we can make of it what we want. We can ignore it and say, yeah, that's nothing to do with us. We can say, yeah, hey, great, well done, police, or we can get involved and then we can say, fantastic, thank you, police, for your help, but we're going to help the other bit of this as well, and we're going to make your job a lot easier. Um, that's my thing for this week. You know, take that whichever way you want, but that's my thing for this week. Couple of other bits to throw into chatty bit this week, and one of them kind of segues from that. Um, and it's the so I don't know if you've read this, I don't know if you've seen it. The Eston report from Harry Tudor's school was not a good one. Been put in special measures. I was teetering on the edge of that for a long time. Hasn't improved. Um, and needs serious overhaul. Okay. So I got two bits on this. So I know a lot of teachers up there that are very frustrated with what's going on. And and I'm not gonna name names, but the higher up the chain you go, the more responsibility you have for that school. Okay. And I'll leave it at that. So there are there are teachers in that school that absolutely heart and soul want to make it work and could have left a long time ago, but have said, no, I want to make this right. There are people there that have grown up in Pembroke and Pembroke Dock and are committed to making sure that they want to make that town, that school right. So there's that side of it. Okay. There's the leadership side of it, but there's also us as a town and as parents. And we have a responsibility as well to expect more of our children. We have that responsibility to expect more of their behavior, more of their attitude, more of their effort. We should be setting our kids up to exceed everything that we've done, not to, you know, do what you want. And yeah, I don't care because that just says to the kids, you're not worth the effort. You're not worth putting time and effort into because you're a waste of space. What do we expect of our children if that's the message we're going to give to them? We have to set them high standards. We have to get involved. There was a report, actually, it'd be more than one. There's been 10, 15, 20, all looking at the same thing about academic success and what makes it. And the bit that really, really influences kids more than school, more than money, more than accessibility, more than the quality of the teaching. The one thing that will influence children in school is the attitude of the parents, and that's the bit that kind of multiplies everything else. If you've got poor teachers in a school, but your attitude is right, you'll go and you'll find the information that you need. If you've got great teachers and a great attitude, you're going to go far. Yeah. If if you've got poor facilities in your school, you've not got books, your windows are falling out or whatever, but your attitude is right, you will find a way to make your learning right. You can have all the great facilities, which that school was built brand new, and inside 6 months it was wrecked. And that's the responsibility of the kids that put the windows through, that kicked the doors in, that wrecked the walls. That's on them and their parents, because the parents set the attitude that that was acceptable. So, yes, that school has got a lot of improving to do, a lot of improving. But I come back to that bit that I was talking about just now. We, as the town, as the society, need to set the expectation that this is what we do. This is how we behave in school. This is how we behave outside of school. If I remember, I remember complaining to the headmaster when I was in Pembroke School that I'd sat in a lesson waiting for my maths teacher. I was sat there with my hand up. I had a problem. I couldn't get through it. And I'd sat there with my hand up for 3 lessons, and my maths teacher couldn't get to me because I had 3 or 4 disruptive kids in that lesson that were constantly sucking his time. And that was a good maths teacher. He was a good maths teacher. That was Mr. Ballman. Um, he was a really good maths teacher, and he apologized to me, and he gave me a one-to-one lesson at lunchtime at one point, because he said, yeah, I after I'd complained, but he was like, and he apologized, and he said, I'd love to spend more time just helping people like you. All my time's getting sucked with these other people. So that's, that attitude again isn't a new one. It's been there a long time, and we either break it now, or it'll just continue and get worse and worse and worse. And here's what will happen, okay, is you'll have another generation of kids going, I don't care. And then they become the parents, because the vast majority of people that do well in education will move away. And you'll be left with the people that couldn't afford to move away, and the people that will go, oh, I'm not bothered, and all of that kind of stuff. I chose to move home. I chose to move home. I could have stayed away. I could have stayed in London. I could have stayed in Cardiff. I could have stayed in Bristol. I chose to move home. Some of my friends did as well. Some of my best friends in school, we all chose to move home because we'd made that conscious decision that this is where we were going to start our family. That's not the case for most people. So our responsibility to give our kids that best education and give them the opportunities to go, do you want to come home? Do you want to stay here and help make this place a better place? Because if you do, education is the way to do it. Yeah. Sitting on your ass, firing your catapult at cars as they go across Commons Road, kicking seagulls in the park. That's not the behaviour that's going to get you anywhere in the future. Yeah. We have to set our standards with those kids. We then set them to the school, and then you can say to the school, okay, I've given you some good kids with the right behaviours, the right attitudes. Can you help me make them into excellent citizens? That's when you can start complaining at the school. So, yeah, school has got a lot of improving to do, but we need to play our part in that, and we need to accelerate it. Put it that way. Okay, I told you we had a lot to get through this week. Right. So my last bit in the news as well. Okay, and I am going to read this one from my phone. So horses again. Just being a pain. What I will say is they've been every time that they're being put in certain places, and they're being released by owners that don't care about them, and they're put in certain places. Those places are starting to be removed now. So I've seen the council. Um, there've been two or three places where these horses have been removed to, been released to. Those have been now secured. Those places. So the places with the opportunities are now getting less and less and less. So I said I put a recording out this morning, like I said, right at the start when I was having a little walk with my dogs. I took a recording of the horses that were on the footpath around the castle. Fairly big horses. Don't get me wrong, tame. They weren't aggressive. They weren't anything like that. They didn't look particularly well cared for. I'll be honest. But they weren't aggressive. They weren't charging. Nothing like that. But there's still. That's you. If your kids walking around there and they're only half a piss pot high, then that horse is going to be a big animal. Okay. So I put a message out and somebody tagged in RSPCA Pembrokeshire. Now I've done this before. I've done a podcast before and we've spoken about what are the rules with horses, whose responsibility is it um to deal with them? Yeah. Is it police? Is it council? Is it RSPCA? Because if you report it to one, you'll get ping-ponged to the other two. That's pretty much the way it goes. Okay. So this is from the RSPCA. So they put a message on the post that I put this morning, and I think this is pretty much identical to what I read out earlier in the year. Okay, so the Control of Horses Wales Act 2014, the power of the local authority to seize horses. Okay, so this is the power that the local authority has. Local authority may seize and impound a horse which is on any highway or in any other public place in the local authority's area if the local authority has reasonable grounds for believing that the horse is there without lawful authority. That includes on common land. Okay, there are rules about who can and can't graze on common land. If they believe that that horse should not be on common land, um, they can seize the horse. A local authority may seize and impound a horse which is on any other land in the local authority's area if the local authority has reasonable grounds for believing that A, in the case of land which the local authority is the occupier, that the horse is there without the authority's consent, and B, in the case of other land in the local authority's area, the horse is there without the consent of the occupier of that land, and the occupier consents to the local authority impounding that horse. So basically, it is up to PCC to impound the horse. But again, I'm going to flip this round. Okay, seizing a horse and impounding a horse costs money. Yeah, you have to. First of all, you have to capture the bloody thing. Then you have to transport it. That's not cheap. Then you have to put it somewhere. You have to look after it. You have to feed it. You have to, in the case of those, you'd have to wash it, groom it, because uh, all of that costs money, and that comes out of our council tax. I don't see why we, as council taxpayers, should be paying to look after these horses. Okay. Now, further down that feed, that post that I put there this morning, okay, somebody's put that the local authority used to have a facility to look after these horses. But what used to happen is the horses would get impounded, they'd get taken to the facility, the owner would turn up, intimidate, threaten the person who it wouldn't have been a very well paid job, to be honest. But they would intimidate that person and then they'd go do you know what? For my own personal safety, just have the horse back. And by the way, stuff this for a bag of bananas. I'm off somewhere else. Yeah. So that's kind of the situation we've got to. There isn't a horse impounding place in Pembrokeshire anymore. Um, and, we all know who it's the traveling community that are largely responsible for these horses. Um, and if you want to be taken seriously as a community, then you have to take responsibility. You, if you want to sit there and go, why should we be treated any differently to anybody else? And I completely understand that. I completely agree with you on that. Yet you should be treated the same way as every other person that lives within our county, but you also have responsibility to behave responsibly. You also have that responsibility to look after those horses and put them in a place where you own. Yeah. The, the whole thing about common land and the side of the road and all of that kind of stuff. If the local authority doesn't want them there, the local authority can remove them. You do not have an automatic right to graze your animals wherever you want. Yeah. You have the right to put them somewhere safely. So if you want to be taken seriously as a community, yeah, and there will be community leaders inside that traveling. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the traveling community, but there are leaders within that community that need to take control of it and say, whoever is doing this, guys, it needs to stop because you're giving us a bad name, you're giving us a bad reputation. And it's taken a long, long time to improve the reputation of the travelling community in Pembrokeshire. Yeah. Um, but you were absolutely getting to that bit where people were you were getting to that bit where it was you were being treated the way you should be treated. Yeah, with dignity and respect. Uh, and you're gonna ruin that if you keep going with the horses. If you cannot afford to rent a field and secure that field and feed them within that field and look after them within that field, then don't have the horse. Simple as that. I've got two dogs. If I couldn't afford to feed them, if I couldn't afford to exercise them, if I couldn't afford to look after them, then I would have to give them to somebody else who could. And the same is true of horses. At the minute, I watched this morning, the horses kind of followed me. I walked around the back of the castle pond, and they kind of followed me over the road into the commons. Now, as luck happened, we're half term, so it wasn't particularly busy. And there was roadworks going on. The councillor removing all the stuff that blocks up I don't know what it's called, like the rubbish filter at the end of the stream. So they're doing a lot of work on that, which means that there are JCBs on the road and what have you. So that bit was closed. So there's only, they were closing that off as these horses trotted across the road. So it would have been very, very easy if that happens next week, where schools are back and it's the Valero racetrack is in full flow. Someone's getting hurt. Someone's coming around that corner, not seeing that horse, and bang. So yeah, we need to do something about it. We absolutely need to do something about it, but it relies on the owners of those horses, which I'm largely believed to be the travelling community. If I'm wrong, fine, tell me I'm wrong. But that's who I've been told 9, 10, 12 times. I've been told it by the police. I've been told it by councillors. I've been told it by traveling. I've been told about people who are part of the traveling community that they know who owns these horses and they don't care. So yeah, it's time to let's do something about it because it's only going to end one way, and that's with these horses hitting a car or a van or a lorry and something bad happening on that. Okay, right. What I'm gonna do for the I remember and for the wouldn't it be nice is I'm just gonna give the headlines on those, the titles on those, and then I'm gonna do the rest of those on socials. So before I do those, please do like, subscribe, share, all of that usual stuff underneath there. If you've got any comments on today's show, I'd love to have them, put them in there, some very kind comments. I have had to ban someone from a page this week. They weren't being particularly aggressive. They've just been a pain in the arse. And if you're just gonna come and try and take the mickey and be a pain in the backside and all of that, not even a funny sort of thing. But if that's what you want to do, go find somewhere else to do it. My page, I've not got the time or the tolerance to put up with idiots that just want to sit there and try and excel at being an idiot. So yeah, so please do put your comments below on what we've been discussing today. Similarly, if you want to come and be a part of the Towncast, Pembroke Dock Towncast, so my apologies to the people who messaged before. I haven't got back to you. Like I said, I've been busy the last couple of weeks. I fully intend on speaking to the people that have put their hands up and said, "Oh, I might have a go at this" before. Um, if you fancy it, drop me a line. If I've forgotten to get back to you, please drop me a line as well. I love towncast@gmail.com. It'd be great to have more people involved, and we can do more things on that. Okay, let's quickly move on to then the I remember. So I wanted to remember something. I was watching the Olympics. I was thinking, yes, it's quite cool. And I remembered that we used to have BMX tracks. So I was watching the luge. We wump down, lovely jubbly. And I'm thinking that's pretty bloody mental. Um, and people forget that we used to have a full scale BMX track. It wasn't a small one. It was a fairly big BMX track on land, which is now Tesco's. So this would have been mid 80s, I think, something like that, probably early to mid 80s. Um, so yeah, do you remember that bike track? The bit that I remember about it was there were a whole bunch of nettles in the middle, and the first time I went around the big berm, and I lost control because I didn't know how to ride it and what have you. And I went headfirst into the nettles, and I didn't go back for quite some time after that. But yeah, has anyone got any photos? I'm going to put this out on socials on Thursday morning. Okay, so have a look on our socials Thursday morning. There'll be something on there about the beer, but I'd love to see some photos. I'd love to see some old photos. I think I've got some at my mum's house. I probably, but it'll be buried at the bottom of the understairs cupboard somewhere. Um, but yeah, if you've got any photos or share your memories of riding around that BMX track, because yeah, it was really cool on that. So yeah, I'll go and finish up with "Wouldn't It Be Nice" as well, and I'm going to do the same on this. So this is going to go out on Friday morning. I'll put a post out on Friday morning. Wouldn't it be nice? There's been a lot of stuff in the news this week. 30 years since the CM Press disaster. I might have seen it on Country File and what have you. And yeah, a lot of people focus on how Temby was affected and how Angle in particular was affected, but it also came up the the estuary as well. The oil came up the estuary, um, and I'm just thinking with all the stuff that's going on now with we're about to experience the new oil boom, yeah, the new energy boom that'll be a lot cleaner than the oil. If somebody drops a wind turbine, it's a lot of money, but it's not going to pollute all the beaches and kill 70,000 birds. Okay, so yeah, I just thought now might be the right time to put something there as a permanent reminder, not a memorial or anything like that, but a reminder of the story of the CM Press. We need something to say to the kids. Oh, my daughter was watching the Country File Report with me, and we'd never really spoken about the CM Press and what it meant and how it affected us. And I was away in university at the time. I was playing rugby for Tenby, so I came home on one. I came home the night where you could just see the oil coming into Tenby. So I was training with Tenby. So and I remember seeing, we pulled up. There was a load of cars um, along the Norton. We stopped and we got out, and the smell hit you from there. And this is 4, 5, 6 days after the initial accident. But I remember seeing people crying across there, and I was 19, 20, whatever I was. And I remember thinking, "Wow, this is big. This is important. This is serious." Um, and then I went rugby training, and I went back to Cardiff. And then I came back a couple of days, and yeah, it was worse, so much worse. Um, but I think sometimes, the inside of the estuary kind of gets forgotten because it wasn't shown on TV much. It wasn't, the big place to go and all of this and that's not taking away anything from Tenby, by the way. That's just saying sometimes the rest of it was forgotten. So maybe now might be the right time to have something that's a bit more of a permanent reminder of of the CM Press and how it affected everyone on that. So yeah, that'll be out on socials on Friday morning. Love to have your comments on that, what we could do, and how you would see that working on that. Okay, I'm very quickly going to wrap up then with some sports results. So, going to start with the rugby. Basically, in the rugby, NAFL's happened. This was the last result which we spoke about on the last pod, which was Quins versus St David's. So nothing has really changed. And with international season, it does tend to go a little bit like this. So the next game for the Quins, 28th of February. So it's another, not this weekend, weekend after, away in Langham on that one. Okay, and that's pretty much it for rugby. Okay, football. Again, this is going to be with the weather. Um, it's going to be a little bit hit and miss on that. We've got some fixtures. Well, look at that, Tenby and Carew on this weekend with that. Any results from last weekend? Carew lost 1-0 at Narberth. Robins lost 4-2 at home to Fishguard Sports. Robins' season has kind of gone a little bit wayward, hasn't it? They've not really kicked. They showed a lot of promise early season and haven't really delivered on that. So Carew mid-table, Robins bottom end of mid-table, but Robins are getting pulled back in though. Fishguard, that game, yeah, that game against Fishguard now looks really, really important this weekend. Um, oh, that's against Kilgetty, sorry. um, but you look at where Robins are, they're 4 off the bottom on 16 points. Narberth one beneath them on 15, and then Fishguard on 12 points. But Fishguard have got 5 games in hand on the Robins. So, yeah, not out of danger. Not out of danger at all on that one. Okay, Division 2. Well, this is lovely. Look, we were starting to see fixtures being populated. I'm getting confused on here. So games coming up this weekend. Carew reserves are playing Merlin's Bridge at home. I think that's it for us there. Yeah, results from last weekend. Swift reserves beat Carew reserves 5-2 on that. Yeah, I think we've covered all the others on that. So lovely. Division 3 then. Oh, I'm getting confused. They never have fixtures in here. Never. Okay, so fixtures for this weekend. The Borough are playing Tenby seconds. On that, Penna Robin seconds are playing Kilgetty seconds. Loreni travel to St Clair's as well. Results from last week. So the Borough beat the Robins seconds 2-1. Local derby, that would have been I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, but that was the big one coming up. So good that they actually got that game played on that. Where does that leave people in the table? So Borough in second place behind Tenby seconds. Oh, oh, now then, that makes this weekend's game very interesting. So that's the top of the table clash this weekend. Loreni in fourth and Robin second is bottom of the table. Robin's just not having a great season at all, are they, on that? Division 4 then. Nothing really there for us to look at. Angle beating Manabir if that's your thing, but nothing there. Division 5, I think, is where we've got a bit more interest. Yeah, Borough Reserves playing Narberth Reserves this weekend, and they lost 4-2 at the Rennie Reserves last weekend. So, as always, if you've got anything, any sports that you would like to share with us, give us the results, all of that kind of stuff, please do just kind of drop us a line, or if you want to come on and talk sports to me, I'd be more than happy to do that with you as well. So, yeah, I mean, it could be, you can look at today's pod and go, okay, I was a bit miserable, but I think it's important that we talk about these things. It's important that you know, we need to be proud of who we are and what we do, and we need to set ourselves some high standards. Um, and we need to, yeah, we just need to keep chipping away at it. And one day, one we'll all be out there and we'll all be going, do you know what? I'm making Pembroke Dock proud. And on that note, I shall bid you farewell and I shall see you next week. All the very best. Ta-da. Be strong.